Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. My name is Sarah, and in today's video we're going to be going over the Select as Best feature for your vendor quotes within your RedTeam Flex projects. So as you can see here, I am on the vendor quotes page of one of my projects within my RedTeam Flex database. I've gotten here by navigating into my project, this Haunted Mansion renovation project, and I've used the home icon to come to the vendor quotes page. This can also be accessed using the Estimate tab and the Manage icon. But here, within my vendor quotes page, I have the ability to view and compare all of the quotes that I've collected by cost code. So you can see here, I've collected 3 separate quotes for my concrete cost code here, 03000. And if I'd like to compare those side by side and select officially which one I'm going to be using for this project, I have this best column right here with these stars. In order to open up a side-by-side comparison, I simply click on the star next to any of my quotes, and I'm going to see a side-by-side comparison of all quotes for that given cost code. So you can see we're viewing just the quotes for the 03000 cost code, concrete for apartments, and we're going to see the vendor short name up top here. So this is simply an abbreviated version of the vendor name. We're going to see that vendor's average rating, if they have any ratings thus far. You can see Blue Rock Concrete here does not have any ratings, but the other two look like they're doing fairly well. We have our Select as Best button, which we're going to be able to use to choose which quote we're going to be using on this project. And then we have a list of the items in the assembly for concrete from our estimate. So I built out my estimate to break down this concrete cost code into concrete mix, forms, and installation labor, all of which are going to fall under the subcontract category for costs because I intend to write one subcontract for all of them. So what I can see here with these checkboxes is that as these quotes were collected, each vendor is able to indicate which items in the assembly are included in their quote and which items are not. So what I can see right away here is that Able Pavement has not included the installation labor in their quote. So for some reason, they did not include it. Maybe they're not able to provide installation. They're simply a supplier who can provide the concrete and the forms. But that allows me to note that there's a difference here of $22.75 as far as excluded items, right? So they left out this installation labor, which I estimated at a value of $22.75. So it's telling me that if I exclude that $22.75, then their comparative value is $3,300 over my estimated value. So you can see here what we're doing is we're taking their bid amount plus the value of any excluded items to say if they had included those items, this would be the total value of their bid, which allows you to then compare to the value of your estimate for the cost code. So I can see there that I would be spending $3,300 more than what I estimated if I went with this particular subcontractor for concrete. Whereas over here I can see that Blue Rock and my concrete construction company both included all items in the assembly. So I can then see that their bids are much closer to what I estimated, and there's no excluded items here. If I see in this variance that it's in parentheses, that means that their total bid amount or their comparative value is over what my total estimate was for the cost code. Whereas over here, Concrete Construction Company came in at $3,300, that's $140 under what I estimated here. So this allows me to really quite accurately compare how these vendors fall, not only compared to each other, but compared to what I thought the cost of this cost code would be. Now I've got a couple of other buttons down below here. If I need to uncommit any of these to make edits, I can do so. So if I uploaded these quotes myself and I see that I made an error, I can go ahead and uncommit to make edits to the value or to which assembly items are checked. Down here where we have our little folder icon, we can go ahead and click to view or download the uploaded copy of their itemized quote. So as they submit their quote, they may have included a PDF, a Word document, or an Excel file that itemized their quote, and you can click here to view that. And then you've got the ability to leave yourself or others some notes here about this particular quote or this vendor. But when we're ready to make a decision, if we choose the one that we want to go with, we simply want to hit the Select as Best button. Now, this is going to do a couple of things for me. When I select them as best, first, it's going to replace my estimate value with their bid amount, and we'll go see that in the estimate here in a moment. Secondly, it's going to give me the opportunity to include a copy of this vendor's quote in my proposal document so that if I'd like my customer to be able to see all the quotes I've chosen to use, they will be able to view those in conjunction with my proposal to them. So we're going to go ahead and hit Select as Best. It's going to give me a warning here letting me know that it is going to edit my estimate automatically. Now, keep in mind that this Select as Best feature is optional. You're not required to use this in any of your projects, but it can save you a lot of time in terms of editing your estimate or tailoring your estimate to match the quotes that you've chosen to use. But if at any point you need to change the vendor that you've chosen, or you decide that you don't want to use the Select as Best feature, you can come back into this comparison and click the Unselect button to return to a status where your estimate value here is what will show on the proposal, and you've not chosen a quote to use officially. So now I'm going to go ahead and close out this comparison. And we can see here in the vendor quotes page that it's very clearly identifying for me which quote we've selected as best by that gold star. The other two in that cost code now have gray stars, indicating that those quotes will not be used on this project. Again, if I need to open that comparison and edit, I simply click any of these stars to open it back up and I can unselect. But now let's go take a look at our estimate and see what's happened to that concrete cost code. So let's go ahead and open up our concrete cost code here. And we can see that it has been grayed out, which means it's locked out. There's no capability for editing the way that I can edit this masonry cost code. You can see here I could click into masonry and make edits to unit cost, quantity, anything that I need to adjust the total overall costs. Whereas for concrete for apartments, I've now chosen a quote. Over on the right-hand side, we can see that we've chosen the concrete construction company. We can click on their name to view a copy of their quote in the vendor quotes page. But our total value is locked in at $3,300. It's still showing the other three assembly line items, but it's essentially placed all of the value here in one lump sum subcontract line item to account for that quote that we've chosen. And the reason that it lumps it all into this single line item is because, of course, we're not breaking down that vendor's bid amount by item. Your vendors are not required to itemize out their quote when they submit. They simply attach a copy and they give us the lump sum amount. So that's what you're seeing here. But of course, when you create their commitment, you'll still be able to itemize out that schedule of values for your vendor in this same way if you prefer. Now, one of the things to consider here when you're thinking about whether or not you want to use this Select as Best feature is whether you'd like to have the flexibility to adjust your estimate so that it does not exactly match your chosen quotes. And what I mean by that is, if you imagine that my vendor bid an amount of $33.75 and 62 cents, I may wish to round that number off to $3,400. Just to keep things neat and clean on my proposal. If that's something that you're interested in doing, you may choose not to use the Select as Best feature and come back here and tailor your estimate manually based on the quote that you've chosen without using the Select as Best feature. But if you appreciate this time savings, clicking that Select as Best button can tailor the estimate for you and you don't have to do anything else. You're then ready, once you've collected and selected all of your quotes, to move to the Contract tab and generate your proposal document for the customer, with your estimate having adjusted to all of those quotes that you chose. Now, the last thing we want to see here is the ability to include those selected quotes in your proposal document. So if we hit the pencil here to edit our proposal document, and we scroll down to the attachments section, we can see that we can very easily, with one click, include our selected vendors. That's going to list the name of the vendor that you chose for each cost code and a copy of their quote via hyperlink. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example of that proposal document. So here's our fixed price proposal, and as we scroll down past all the standard information, at the bottom we can see that separate page for selected vendors, where we can see the cost code and the description, the name of the vendor that we chose, and if we click on their name, that is actually a hyperlink that will open a copy of their quote in a separate browser tab. So that allows your customer, should you want to provide them with that information, it allows them the ability to see all of the quotes and all of the vendors that you've chosen for various parts of the scope of work. So that should conclude our video on selecting quotes as best. What you've seen today is how to use that select as best feature, how it's going to tailor your estimate, and the opportunity to include it in your proposal document here if you'd like to include those selected quotes for your customer. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you so much for choosing RedTeam.